And that day I walked in and I fired my entire company. And then I basically hit rock bottom. They got to the point where they were literally going to take my home.
Hey, I'm Sam, and this is The Phoenix Table. Raw stories from the fire for people rising out of the messy middle. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, pull up a chair, and join us, because we all rise better together. Todd, thank you so much for joining. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your career path, where you've come from?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's really great to be here. My career path is certainly, I think, like most entrepreneurs, most people that I interact with, it's certainly not linear. It's not, well, I did this and then I did this and then I did this and I climbed to the top of the mountain and it was the view was beautiful and everybody looked down upon it. It was awesome. No, mine is the crooked line of success. And it started off, when I was very young, 5 years old, my dad passed away. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and she had to go return to work. My older brother got an athletic scholarship. He went to Kentucky. My older sister moved to Tucson, Arizona. So within 90 days, my entire nuclear family, in the mind of a 5-year-old, my context, 9 to a 5-year-old, had abandoned me. And that experience, that trigger traumatic event of losing a parent at a very young age, really guided my decision making and guided the way I looked at the world for many, 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 many years. So the first thing I decided was that the only person I can depend on is me. In that very rugged individualistic style. And certainly, my mom wanted to be there and she didn't, enjoy returning to work, but she had a 5-year-old to take care of. So as adults, it totally makes sense what decisions took place and the offshoots of those decisions. But 5, the only person I can count on is me. And at a deeper level, on a very, I did a lot of work with coaches and therapists over the years, is sure. I would tell myself the story that if my dad really loved me, he would have died. So all that creates a foundation. So at that foundation, for me, of that traumatic experience was, well, the only person I can rely on is me. Which, when you go forward, when I was 27 and started my first company, well, that's great. I can sell, I can do ops, I can do HR, I can do accounting, I can do all those things.
Yeah.
So the story becomes is, well, did the loss of my father and the choices, those ripple effects through my life happen for me or to me? Well, at that point, I'm, doing pretty well, start my company. By day 72, I became profitable. I was shocked because I didn't really know what I was doing. I don't have a business degree. I have a degree in communications and marketing. And, I'd been in sales and I was really, but I caught a wave, which I didn't know. Ignorance is bliss. And I started in 1997. The unemployment rate in Detroit was like 4%. So I had a staffing company. So if I could find a body, I could get that body a job pretty quickly because it wasn't that hard.
Sure.
Well, that worked really well until it didn't. And then as I'm trying to grow and scale my business, I really struggled to trust other people. Because if I trust you and I extend, and I didn't know, no one taught us how to delegate, I didn't realize there was 4 different types of delegation. I'm like, well, Sam, you're working for me. Here's your job description. Here's your desk. Recruit these people and come to me with questions. Versus, hey, here's a formal training program. Here's how you recruit, and here's how you sell, and here's how you do all those things. And so when you would immediately not meet the expectations that I had for you, that I never stated to you, by the way, God forbid I set you up as we need proper rules of engagement. We didn't have those. Sure. And then I'm disappointed, and I'm saying, well, Sam's not any good. And all those stories my itty bitty shitty committee was telling me inside of my head about like, well, she's going to leave you anyways. She's not going to stick around. So it's better just to fire her now. So those behaviors, from 5, those behaviors permeated. And then I wanted to be liked because if you like me, you won't leave me. Right. So with customers, I would give them 120-day payment terms. I'm cutting millions of dollars worth of payroll every month, and I'm extending these generous terms. And what that made me was a sucker. And so people, would see that and they would work with us because of our payment terms. And there wasn't enough margin to make that sustainable. So a couple companies worked with us and then they knew their strategy was to go bankrupt. So they stuck us with all the debt. So the employees are mine. They're my fiduciary responsibility. The taxes are my responsibility. The invoices, the company's responsibility. Well, boom, they just discharged that in
Oh,
bankruptcy.
man.
So discharged, $250,000 in bankruptcy within, oh gosh, what was it, 70, 80 days
Oh,
back in
wow.
2006.
Okay.
So I'm 11 years into my, or 97, so 9 years into my journey, and I thought I had it all figured out. I was making more money. I was shocked. I bought a house before I was 30. I was a single dad. I'm raising my son, think I'm doing okay. And it started, God forbid, as an entrepreneur, I stayed with one business. No, I had several businesses going simultaneously because
Of
bright and
course.
shiny, bright and shiny, bright and shiny.
Uh-huh.
And get stuck with this bankruptcy. My bank decides in September of 2006 that they don't want to work at all with any staffing companies.
Too
They
much
looked at their
risk.
portfolio.
Mhm.
They saw that there was a recession on the horizon, and they knew that staffing companies were a leading indicator, again, which I didn't know. And they decided we're canceling all lines of credit to staffing companies. So I was one of those. And well, they called me and said, we're going to cancel your line. We're going to, we need to start paying it back. More than reasonable on the behalf of the bank. Well, I took that as an offense. Because I didn't have the money.
Right.
I didn't have the money because I didn't have enough margin. I didn't have
Right.
enough runway, and I became the victim. What does that sound familiar? Oh, my dad died. I'm a victim. My mom isn't there. I'm a victim. I'm a victim or a martyr. I'm a victim or I'm a martyr. And they got to the point where they were literally going to take my home.
Yeah.
And then I basically hit rock bottom. And like anybody else who maybe hits rock bottom, you finally, for the first time, I took off the mask that I'd been carrying, ripped off the chainmail of desperation, and I hired a coach. And this coach looked at my business, and he's like, yeah, if you're a patient and I was a doctor, I'd call you dead on the table. You are absolutely 100% bankrupt now. So we should get you through bankruptcy, and then we'll rebuild it, and we'll fix all this. I owed like $600,000.
How did you feel hearing that?
I felt like the world's biggest failure. Oh yeah, because my itty bitty shitty committee was already telling me how much, and now I was getting proof. So almost in a weird self-sabotaging way,
weird loop. Yeah.
Right. I'm not good enough, and this is happening to me. And I was blaming others, but the reality was I am both the cause of and the solution to all of these problems that I had created. I extended the payment terms. I chose to work with these companies. I issued all these things. I did this. I picked the employees. I didn't know how to trust them. I picked the wrong employees. All those things were my choice.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see it all then. So for anybody listening, it's like, if you have that kind of level of self-awareness immediately, you were further ahead than I was in my mid-30s.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have questions about how you became aware of all these things, but keep going with your story. We'll loop back.
So the coach says, we got to clear this debt. He had just sold the company for $600 million. He was in my staffing space. He was the number one expert to hire. I couldn't afford him, and I'm paying him on a credit card that nobody knows I've got. So the bank isn't coming at entrepreneur. I'm just going to run this one up too.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so September 9th of 2006, he had been there working with me, and he flew in from California, and I wasn't going to be able to continue to make payroll. It just wasn't my internal payroll.
Yeah.
And so and that day I walked in and I fired my entire company. And I started over. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't file bankruptcy because my son, who was a high school football player at the time, I told him he couldn't quit football. And you're thinking, well, how does that correlate to quitting a business? Well, he had not been practicing as hard as he should have been, and he missed a block, and the quarterback got injured, his best friend. And he goes, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. I want to quit. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting with my coach in my living room like, this is too hard. I want to quit. And I can't, because it was more core values. It was more important for me to, metaphorically die trying to save this business, because I needed to be a role model for my kid that we don't quit things when things get hard. Pick your hard. Bankruptcy is hard. Saving the business is hard.
Yep.
Practicing football is hard. Quitting is hard. Pick your hard. Well, coming out of that, we were able to turn the business around. Within 7 years, I paid off all the debt.
Wow.
And at that point, we made the Inc. 5000 six times in 7 years. As one of the fastest growing companies in America.
Okay, but how did you turn it around?
I changed the way I hired. I used to always hire people with a recruiting background or an HR background, kind of classic staffing. Nope, I would go to like a mid-tier restaurant, and I'd go for lunch. Because those people, I thought, they're working during the day. And I'd say to the hostess or the greeter, say, hey, I've had a tough day. Just give me your best server. And they would. And I'd always give a generous tip, and I'd be talking to the Sam Andersons of the world and say, so, do you like being a wait person? Oh, well, it's okay. It's get me through college. I'm between jobs. I want to be an actor, whatever stories I would hear.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, have you thought about being a recruiter? Because if I got great customer service, I can take somebody who's got great customer service and teach them to be a recruiter. And I slowly started rebuilding my roster of employees as the business got healthier, and we got proper margins, proper payment terms, all the things that I didn't learn.
Yeah.
My coach taught me to read financials, and we started rebuilding the team. And then I met a guy named Simon Sinek. And
who was that? I've never heard of him before.
At that point, nobody had heard of Simon Sinek. And he spoke at a conference, and I hired him for 2 years, and we helped me figure out, but I shouldn't say I hired him for 2 days. It took me 2 years of the work we did for 2 days to figure out the core values of the company, my purpose as a human being. And we started building all of our hiring models off of our improved lives model. And we could tell it to anybody, anywhere, at any time. Everybody from the person who answered the phone to my senior VP, we all had the same messaging. I met a guy named Vern Harnish, read the Rockefeller Habits, joined EO, started being around more successful other people, because as an entrepreneur, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Right. And all my friends worked for, the automotives or, I was this unicorn weird friend of ours, like, who, they're like, oh, he's unemployable, so he's got to go become an entrepreneur kind of thing. And so to answer your question, it was a combination of things. I got around different people. I got more educated on my job as the CEO. I embraced learning. I worked with the same coach for 7 years. I changed the way I hired. We pivoted from being a staffing generalist to going hyper niche, so I could charge more and get paid faster. We moved. Most staffing companies were customer centric, work for the company. We pivoted into being candidate centric. I worked for the candidate like a talent agent, like a sports agent or a Hollywood agent.
Right.
And we were able then to weather and make the Inc. list during the recession here in Detroit when the unemployment rate got as high as 14, 15%. We were still able to keep our doors open. We pivoted into other markets. We got very guerrilla in how we did things because I had to change my mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the questions I kind of want to go back to too, right? So when you became an entrepreneur, you had this mindset, you had this belief system that I'm going to do it all. And I think a lot of us do, and then learn quickly, as you did, that that's not the way it works. But it sounds like you also went through this kind of emotional journey to understand why. Because being a 5-year-old, you didn't know that.
No, of course
being
not.
a 27-year-old, you probably didn't know that, right?
No, I didn't figure the entire story out until my mid-40s.
Okay.
So I'm learning chunks. So there's a model called the active learning cycle. It's at the end of the chapter of everything from my last book, From Suck to Success, where how do we learn? How do we grow? And it's a model that you see this a lot in the tech space: fail forward, fail fast, fail often, and move. And I used to really be hung up on the word failure. I'm a failure. We failed, all those things. And as I grew out of that and matured out of that, my coach was a college golfer. And he still has a 0 handicap. And he would talk about just hit your next best shot, hit your next best shot. You got to put that last shot behind you, put that last shot behind you. So we would model that in the organization because we would try a lot of different things. We would, during the recession, there weren't any jobs. In Detroit, there just weren't any jobs. So we looked at other markets that still had jobs. So we started working in those markets from Detroit. Before there was virtual recruiting, we kind of did our own weird model of it.
2006, right? So it was way before.
08, 09, 2010. So if I needed someone hired in Houston, Texas for the oil fields, I would find an independent contractor on Craigslist. They would have you fill all your paperwork out and then they would fax it to me. Because the barrier at that time, there wasn't any e-signatures.
Right.
So I couldn't do employment verifications, which by law I had to do.
Right.
So I said, well, okay, what is my stumbling block? How can I overcome that? I've got Sam in Houston. She'll go out and meet all my people, get him to fill the paperwork, fax it to me. Sam will be on payroll for 1 day, keep my costs down.
Right.
And that's how we would grow those markets because I couldn't afford to put an office in each of these cities we were working in. It just wasn't going to work. I didn't have the cash. 2, I'm still paying down the debt. And I had to go get a new line of credit to continue to fund payroll. So I'm paying down 2 lines at once, like I have 2 mortgages. So we had to be very creative. So we got very guerrilla in how we did those things. And I figured worst case scenario, I'm going to ask for forgiveness, not for permission. That's just it. And very entrepreneurial. But I also discovered that my leadership needed to evolve and grow. So being part of EO, then I got into a group now it's called EMP in the EO community, but it used to be called Birthing of Giants. And then from there, I joined a group called the Gathering of Titans, which is where I met Cynic. So I'm around all these successful people. So I would hear all these other ideas and I would be very quiet in the room. My job is to listen, not to talk. And I would take it in. It's almost like a constellation, all these different stars connected for me to grow through that. But then the real breakthrough for me is I met a guy named Dr. Danny Friedland. He was a world-renowned neuroscientist. He spoke at Gathering of Titans. He's spoken in the EO and the YPO communities. And I was wrapping up the engagement with my coach. I was looking for a different coach. And he talked about how the brain worked.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing him talk about how the brain works. And I'm like, yeah, my brain doesn't work that way. That's not good. That's not really good. And he kind of wrapped up his story by saying, the neuroscience work that I do is not therapy. It's changing the way you think and changing the way you communicate and changing the way you talk. And the technique he used was the technique called reflective inquiry, which is what I use now when I coach my CEOs. And it's all about mirroring, validating, and massive curiosity questions that we are the solution to the problem. We know the answer if we can calm our thinking and if we can move from a place called the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. And so he would do that with me constantly. And he literally changed my brainwave activity. I remember I went to see him one time in San Diego, and he would ask me different questions in one of those MRI machines where it's rotating around your head, and you just see different parts of the hemisphere of the brain fire. Because this sounds too good to be true that I can actually, God forbid, actually feel better. Because you'd think, you make the Inc. list 6 times in 7 years, you're going to feel pretty good.
Right.
And the day it's announced, yeah, it's pretty cool. Pop the champagne.
Right.
But it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
Because going back to being 5, that big black hole inside of me was the size of a basketball. Well, working with Danny, Dr. Danny, he allowed me to call him, we got that black hole from a basketball to a softball to a hockey puck to a golf ball. It's still there.
Right.
It still visits me sometimes, but it's gotten much quieter. And so now as I was able to lead through that and scale the business, I learned to trust people. I was able to, I had tenured people in the staffing industry who worked with me for 15 years and 13 years and 11 years. In staffing, you typically turn your entire office over every 2 years.
Right.
Because I showed up differently as a leader. But I was never really satisfied. I could recruit, but it never really filled the bucket that I worked with Cynic on. We could improve lives, and we did, paid for our households and all those, paid off all the debt. The bank loved it. Then magically, when the bank, you don't need any more money, what they want to do is they want to give you more money. So
Of course.
So it's not just one answer to your question. There's multiple things. So for people listening, it's not like the movies where I just woke up one day or, there's just this aha moment. It was a long lynching. But when I'd gotten what I thought was all the things that were going to make me feel good from an external success standpoint, and those didn't make me feel better, I'm like, I have inner healing to do. And that's where Dr. Friedland really stepped up, taught me how to, he called it leading well from within. You can't lead others externally until you can first lead from internal.
Well, can you give us an example of what that process looks like? So for instance, you said you have your golf ball still, right? Golf ball size.
Yep.
And it comes up every once in a while. When it does now, what's that process for you to work through it and to clear that?
Sure. Great question. So the amygdala, Danny taught me, is designed in your body to keep you safe. He used to say, basically, you didn't get eaten by dinosaurs. Makes sense. So my amygdala, if you think about it like the volume on a radio, would scream at me all day long at a level of 10.
Sure.
So the work we did was able to get it to a 7, to a 5, to a 3, to a 1. Sometimes it even quiets, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But when it starts screaming at me again, it's like having, think about it like you have a 2-seater car sitting next to me. I want it just to move to the back seat. It's still going to be there because it's designed to keep me safe.
Right.
Which is important. People are like, well, if you work on this kind of technique, it will shut up. No, it'll quiet. It'll quiet. So the way you quiet your amygdala is you have to acknowledge it because it's screaming for attention.
Sure.
You're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. What it was trying to do, going back to being 5 years old, was trying to keep me safe.
Right.
And I was resisting against that. So now, at my age, I say, I really appreciate you wanting to keep me safe. I talk to my clients about this. Where's I'm like, so I got to talk to myself in your head, or go in your office, or go in the car, or go to the gym. Say, yeah, I'm really upset about this something in my business, or something in my parenting, or something in my marriage, or relationships.
Yep.
And it feels very eerily familiar. It's the comfort of the discomfort that's revisiting me. So when
Yep.
there's a threat, so I'm like, you know what? That reminds me of when I was a kid, or that reminds me of something that happened in business, or reminds me of something that happened last week. It didn't kill me.
Right.
I'm still here, and I will work through it. Then I start asking myself, why do you think this is bothering you so much? And I have
Mhm.
to stop talking to myself. Your subconscious will drive something to your consciousness. Well, it's just like when your dad died, or it's just like when this employee, did this, or when those people went bankrupt. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a money issue. Well, they stuck me with all this debt. That really feels familiar.
Right.
All right. Will that happen again in this case? Is this a $250,000 debt? No, it's $100. Okay. All right. So is my reaction in proportion to my risk, in proportion
Mhm.
to my issue? No, it's not. And it's almost like inner child work. You say, hey,
Yeah.
I got you. We're going to get through this. If it's a $100 issue, we're going to be okay.
Right.
We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And you just keep saying, we're going to be okay. And you thank it for wanting to keep you safe.
Right.
Then it says, I've done my job. I'll relax. I'll chill out.
And then it does for a period.
And then it does for a period of time until something else comes in or threatens it. Or, if you're in a relationship with somebody and that
Mhm.
relationship's going wonderfully until it's not.
Right.
And then that relationship reminds you of a previous relationship, or reminds them of a parent, or an aunt, or a sibling, or something. So I coach 20 CEOs. I have an individual CEO coach, and my marriage has a coach.
Mhm.
And we believe in a framework, Jennifer and I, called the Imago. And Imago is
Mm.
based upon the work of John Gottman and Harville Hendricks.
Mhm.
And they believe that you attract a partner not because they're magical unicorns and they're never going to fight with you and it's all going to be kumbaya. No, you attract that partner to help you heal. So
Mm.
we buy into that system. So I'm sure you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, how could anybody ever get mad at Todd? He's an amazing husband, I'm sure. Yeah. We'll invite my wife onto the next show. And she's like, he does this, he does this, he does this, he does this. And he triggers me because all these experiences
Yeah.
are just different types of triggering. So if we recognize our spouse is brought into our lives to help us heal and to help us grow, and it's our work to do. So for years, I was blaming everybody else.
Yeah.
It's my work to do.
Yeah. What was one of the biggest breakthroughs that you had during this healing journey?
It
You've
was
been at this
totally,
for a long time.
yeah, it's since '06.
Yeah.
My biggest breakthrough with Dr. Danny was my relationship with the word failure.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was working on my last book for a long time, I just call it, it was kind of, I had a framework of failing forward into success kind of thing.
Right.
And he's like, I kept saying, why am I such a effing failure? He goes like, we need to address this. I said, yeah, please. I thought, okay, I'm going to get the magical elixir of why does failure only happen to me?
Right.
He's like, you are literally creating your own problem with this. He goes, you know what? Failure doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh no, dude, listen, I got 600,000 reasons with all the debt I've got. I know. It's like, no. He goes, failure is a word that human beings have created to replace the word learning.
Huh.
That was my reaction. I'm like, tell me more. That's when I went out and did the MRI study with him
Right.
of where my brain was firing. He's like, yeah. And it comes from how you talk to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide, and this took a long time, and I still struggle with it, so I don't make that everything happens for you, not to you, because I was being a victim and a martyr, as I mentioned earlier,
Right.
about pretty much everything. And it wasn't really, it was a story I was telling myself, was how I was processing it. If you realize that everything happens for you, not to you, you'll move from your amygdala to your neocortex, because then you're going to start learning and you start using the active learning cycle. And he goes, you inherently did that when you saved your company, because I saved the company before I met Danny. So it's inherent somewhere inside of you. So it's not something you can't relearn, but if you've turned it off or you haven't been, doing your reps, so to speak, with
Sure.
it becomes a muscle you don't use. So you need to go to the gym, start doing your curls to get a bigger bicep around the active learning cycle, because you saying it's failure isn't scientifically true.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've said that to people over the last 8 years since I've been doing this full time, it's one, people push back, which I get. Our society, look at the NFL. NFL Sunday, someone won, someone lost. I said, no. I go, ask them that every time they throw an interception, they immediately go over to the sideline, they pull up the tablet, and they see what they did wrong. Now, if they keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's a different issue versus, hey, I saw that coverage, I threw the ball, bad pass. I'll learn from it. Learn and grow. And if the quarterback can recognize that experience has now taught me, I could put that in my memory that when I see that, don't throw the ball there again. I've now learned. Tom Brady talks about this all the time. He was like, the last thing I would do is make the same mistake twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's how we talk to ourselves and how we, crap on ourselves. And you got to think about, parents,
Yeah.
the critical parent, the critical coach in school, the critical teacher, that it's embedded and the body has memory and it brings that back up. Sometimes, unfortunately, not at the best, most opportune time.
Right. And then it's like a snake eating its tail. It's just a loop.
Oh, yeah. And you
that
doom
just
loop,
goes,
and you
yeah.
doom loop, and you doom loop, and you doom loop. But part of it is the discipline to recognize that it's the story I tell myself.
Yeah. How has that changed the way that you kind of show up as a leader now versus when, prior to having this awareness?
So I'll give you a different type of story. So my son is 34 and my stepdaughter is 16. I've been in her life for 8 years. And her name is Etta, and she has grown up in what's called a psychologically safe household.
Mm-hmm.
My son grew up in chaos and crisis. How I lead as a parent is I use my brain differently. So when my daughter brings me an issue, I validate whatever she says. If she says, there are monsters under my bed, I validate that for her. Why do I do that? Because I need her brain to calm down. So when I say to her, Etta, it makes sense that you think there are monsters under your bed. What we get wrapped up in as leaders and as parents, and I think parents are leaders by default.
Sure. Yep.
Is we think, well, I got to prove to them that there's no monsters under the bed. Well, no, it's invalidating. It's the absolute opposite of what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So with her, I'd say there's monsters under the bed. With my son, when he was 6 and I was 27, I would have said there's no monsters under the bed. User error on my part. So there's no monsters under the bed. So it makes sense that you think there are. Her brain's going to calm down. So what are you worried about? Massive curiosity question. I'm worried they're going to get me. That makes sense. So you're worried they're going to get you. So I validate, I mirror, and I ask questions. That's how I parent differently. That's how I lead differently. So ultimately, we get to the point where I said, hey, I'm super curious. You seem like you've relaxed a little bit, sweetie. What would you like me to do? How can I help you so you can get a good night's sleep? Will you come check? Absolutely. Versus how I would have handled it 25 years ago, not so well. So now, not only do I approach that relationship differently, I approach all relationships, bring it full circle. I approach my 34-year-old son very differently now. Mm-hmm. And when I started really immersing myself in this work about 10 years ago, he came home for Christmas one year. He's living in Los Angeles. He comes home. He's like, hey, can we go to dinner? Just you and I? I'm like, yeah. So he's like, all right, what gives? Who are you? Because you're not my dad. He goes, you're calm, you're relaxed, you listen, you ask me questions. He goes, and you don't tell me what to do. What the heck is going on? And so I started talking more about the work I was doing, Dr. Friedland. And he's like, really? And we got really deep into that now. So now I'm so proud of my son because he's now newly married and he brings that behavior pattern. So what he's doing is going back to the trauma stuff. He's breaking the chain of trauma that was passed on to me from my parents. And certainly I've passed on some to him. I want to break those chains while I still have time on this earth. So his life is better and his children's lives are better. That's how I'm showing up differently as a leader.
Oh, I love that. I love that. If people are listening to this and maybe they're finding themselves in the position that maybe you were back when you were trying to rebuild your business, what would you want to tell them now that you wish someone had told you then?
Oh, tough question. The first thing I think of is that the story I would always tell myself is I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And I grew up in a household where your worth was measured by your accomplishment. Athletics, academics, business, whatever. Now, suspend that for a second. My mother grew up in the Depression. She literally, there were days where there were no food. My dad grew up in an orphanage. There was no parenting available to him. So from their scarcity mindset, that makes sense. Like, my brother was the first one to go to college. I was the second one to go. Like my family, people like, oh, my brother's done very well. I've done well. And people like, oh, you must have come from generational success stories. No.
Mm.
And so, but I would always think, well, I'm not as good as my brother at sports. I'm not as good as my brother at academics. So he would be my competition. He never knew that. We're 12 years apart. We literally grew up in different worlds.
Yeah.
But I was always enough. I was always enough. Now, there are days today I don't even feel like I'm still enough. But I realize now that I get a lot of joy from the work I do.
Mm-hmm.
And in that joy, I get, internal joy, internal sense of accomplishment, but I also get external feedback, typically very positive.
Right.
If that positive goes away for whatever reason, I'm still enough. But then defining what enough means to me. And those are always the biggest things. So as I work with my leaders, like we're all enough. Everybody listening is enough. I love this. Oh yeah, I know I'm enough, but well, as soon as you say but, you've negated the last thing you said. Or I'll be enough when I have a $10 million company or a $50 million company, or my kids are okay and my kids go to college. You see it, typically with the men around the business success. A lot. I have women I coach, or half the people I coach are women too. So I hear from them. The women are almost, I feel worse for them because they're not ever enough as an entrepreneur and they're never enough as a mother or a wife.
Yeah.
Typically. And so there's a lot of, so what that dives us into is shame, guilt, and embarrassment.
Correct. Yeah.
So we don't want to be there because all that does is co-sign the BS of the itty bitty shitty committee.
Right. So it's about recognizing that you're enough, but also naming what enough is, it sounds like.
Yeah. What does enough mean to you? And, so I created a Venn diagram for myself of I call it my zone of genius. And for all my friends listening, they know I'm not a genius, but it's the zone of genius for me. So on one side is my why, my cynic work, improve lives.
Yep.
And how can I do that? So I spent time with a monk. His name was Don DePani. And he defined for himself, and then we had a powerful conversation about what it's like, because he believes that your purpose and your why can't tie to a single person or a single unit, meaning can't tie to your kids and it can't tie to your household or your business. So my definition of that is I improve lives. I can do it anywhere, at any time, with anyone for a fee, or I can do it for free. Those are my choices. That's one side of the circle. The other circle is my definition of success, which is doing what I want, where I want, with whom I want, as often as I want. And when those Venn diagram over each other in that center slice, that's happening. That's my definition right there. And the more time I get to spend in that definition, so spending time with you today, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, with whom I want to be doing with it, when I wanted to do it. So it allows me to be fully present. And then we have an energy exchange. And in that energy exchange, I get something from that. Sometimes I can cognitively understand, but sometimes it's just like, man, just talking to Sam Anderson, I feel really freaking good. I want to talk to Sam Anderson again. How do I do that? Or I want to have more conversations like that. And the body chemistry starts to change, because what happens in my brain is a thing called the love cocktail: oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine.
Yep.
And that's what I want to feel as much as possible in my life. So if I can do that about 85% of my life, it's the best. And magically, the more I do that, the better my income is, the better my finances are, the better my household is, the better my customer relationships are. But when that gets out of balance for whatever reason, listen, I have bad days. They happen. My job is to realize it's happening, tell myself I'm going to be okay. We're going to figure this out, and rework the process. So even though I coach it, I have to embody it and I have to live it.
That's great. And it resonates with me too, because I've been through processes like this as well. And there's the story of the epistemology, but then what do you do with understanding where it came from and work through it? For those who might be listening who've never been through this process, or maybe don't feel like they have the resources to like hire a coach, what's one of like the first ways that you would recommend just getting started on this journey?
I think the first thing to recognize is that you are ready to do the work. So many people, I do a lot of discovery calls with people who are potentially interested in hiring me as a coach. And a lot of them just aren't ready to do the work. When you're ready to do the work, and I call it being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I've had clients who've gone through AA or 12-step programs, and they talk about it like, listen, I heard for years I had issues. Charlie Sheen just talked about this. I heard for years I had issues. I wasn't ready to do the work, because I was having fun and I was making money, or I was doing this and I had no responsibilities and I had people, enabling, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you got to be ready to do the work. That's the first thing I tell them. The second thing is, I understand things cost money, but if you don't invest in yourself, you're not going to get any ROI. the great thing about the world today is you can get an Audible book or an online book, most likely for under $30
Totally.
that you can get. Listen, I'll say this right now. If somebody listens to this and they want a free copy of Suck to Success, send me an email. I will send you one for free. Like, that's how much I believe in the world of abundance. So get people to invest in you, but I can't read the book for you.
Right.
Now, it's on Audible. I've read it for you, but I can't listen to it for you. But I'd say do those things. And then who do you surround yourself with? Where do you know, I went from it to EO. I changed my community. I spent less time in my life with important family members who were just bringing me down at one point.
Sure.
So I pulled away from that. But realize that, the value of being sick and tired of being sick and tired is you've got to be willing to start and do the work. The work is different for everybody. The work moves constantly. The target is really never hit. It's constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. And realize too that it's a lifelong journey. I've been working on this since 2006. The work never ends. Gottman talks about it. He's like, the work never ends. There's no healed. People who stopped drinking or stopped drugging, yeah, they stopped the influencer. But all the work, all the reasons why they did all those things still exist.
Right. Right.
So I think people are worth investing in. And so invest in yourself. We still have libraries. I mean, if you want to learn bad enough, you want to grow bad enough. And also, I'll throw this out there too. Also recognize a great book out there by a woman named Lisa Leahy. It's called Immunity to Change. It's why you don't change. So recognize that change is going to potentially be challenging for you and difficult for you. And when you try and it doesn't work out and you're learning, not failing, how do you stay on that course? And there's nothing wrong with taking a day off. There's nothing wrong with saying, like, screw it. I am just going to Netflix and veg out or whatever you do, but get back on the horse eventually. But understand that change for a lot of people is a real struggle.
And just have the courage to look it in the face and say, I'm gonna do it anyway.
I argue it's two things: courage for sure, but also vulnerability. Brené Brown 101, lead with vulnerability. When I hired a woman named Becky, I had just fired everybody at my company, and we had a 2,000 square foot office. We had like 15 desks in there, and my office is in the very back of the office, my private office. So she comes walking in for her interview, like, there's nobody there at 2:00 in the afternoon, like nobody. And
Right.
she hears the phone ringing. Somebody in the back answers it. It was me. And oh yeah, you're looking for so and so. Yeah, well, they're on a client appointment. How can I help you? That kind of stuff. She sits down and she's like, "Hi, I'm Becky, and it's nice to meet you." She's like, "I'm really curious. Where's everybody at?" It's like an apocalyptic movie where everybody's gone and there's just one guy.
Yeah.
Waiting for the zombies to come out and get her. And I said, "I'm going to be honest with you. I'm the only person who works here." "Aren't you the president?" "Yes, I am." And I told her this story, and I led with vulnerability. And the pit in my stomach was the size of a really big orange. Becky says, "I love your honesty. I want to work here. What do I need to do?" Because I've been in a lot of interviews and people aren't this honest. She goes, "Clearly it's a mess, but I want to help you." And she was with me until the day I sold.
Wow.
So leading with vulnerability. Now, I didn't know I was doing that, but I just thought, I can't keep wearing all these masks. I can't keep trying to rob Peter to pay Paul and do these other things. And, Becky would get the collection calls and say, just send them to me. And I say to people, "Hey, Sam, I know I owe you some money. And here's what I can pay you this amount today for this amount that I owe you. And here's the plan. Here's what I'm doing. And I stopped hiding.
That's great. That's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to mention? I feel like we touched on so many different topics today.
And you're so sweet. You kind of let me just go on and fill the space. So that was very thoughtful of you.
No, of course. Like, it was all great and tactical and strategic. Like, we can actually use some of the advice that you gave, today. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that we glossed over or that we didn't really dig into?
I think what I'd like to say about trauma is there's all these studies. I'm working on my next book. It's called Traumapreneur. And in the research, and I'm working with 5 different PhDs to validate some of the premises. And what we're discovering is for high achievers, whether you're an entrepreneur high achiever, an executive high achiever, athlete, parent, whatever you call high achieving, 75% or more of those people have had a significant trauma experience or more in their lives.
Interesting.
And so if you're feeling like, I used to think, well, I must be the only one. No one else, no one else is as screwed up as I am. Nobody, oh my gosh. And you realize that so many more people have been impacted on it. So for me, I used to feel very alone and very isolated and embarrassed and had shame and guilt attached to all those things. So I'd say for anybody listening, like, realize you're not alone. You're not alone. And there are people that will help you, whether it's reading a book or getting a resource or joining a peer mastermind group, or there's resources out there. You don't have to suffer alone. And you don't have to suffer alone with shame, guilt, and embarrassment, because most likely the experience that happened to you, like happened to me, had nothing to do with you.
Well, that's perfect. Todd, I'm going to end it there because I think that's a great ending note. And I just wanted to thank you again for coming on as a guest.
Sam, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me on the Phoenix Table. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, review, and subscribe, and make sure to share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, we rise better together.